Life for Addie Bundren has been long and laborious, but as a deathly illness racks her body, the Bundrens deal with her creeping demise in various ways. Ance Bundren is the dim-witted, ignorant husband of Addie Bundren and father to the family. Ance has experienced little else in life than his own farm, believing that movement or travel is detrimental to one's home life. Because if he'd aimed for a man to be always a-moving and going somewhere else, wouldn't he put him long ways on his belly, like a snake? It stands to reason that he would. Ance's opposition to change or variety reflects his otherwise dull and predictable lifestyle. Yet despite a relatively menial existence, when Ance needs something, it is all he can think about. God's will be done. Now I can get them teeth. But now I can get them teeth. That will be comfort at will. Ance's lack of depth and role as a static character makes him fairly unmoved by Addie's passing, believing that her death will be a good excuse to fetch a new pair of teeth in town. Ultimately, Ance's desires are not to seek a decent resting place for Addie, but to satisfy his own superficial needs.
After Addie dies, Cash continues to look at the situation in an increasingly rational and calculated way, in one instance viewing this situation more from the perspective of a carpenter than his son. He communicates in lists and seems almost disconnected from Addie's passing. Instead of focusing on the emotional aspects of her death, he talks about her coffin and how he went about constructing it. Similarly to Darrell, Cash begins to spend more and more time observing the family, as a third party or someone with no real relation to the Bundren family.
I made it on the bevel. There is more surface for the nails to grip. There is twice the gripping surface to each seam. The water will have to seep into it at a slant. Water moves easiest up and down or straight across. In a house, people are upright 2/3 of the time, so the seams and joints are made up and down, because the stress is up and down. In a bed where people lie down all the time, the joints and seams are made sideways, because the stress is sideways. Except, a body is not square like a cross tie. Animal magnetism. The animal magnetism of a dead body makes the stress come slanting, so the seams and joints of a coffin are made on a bevel. You can see by an old grave that the earth sinks down on the bevel, while in a natural hole it sinks by the center, the stress being up and down. So I made it on the bevel. It makes a neater job.
Addie, former schoolteacher and mother to the Bundren family, dies a slow death, reflecting on her unfortunate past and her loveless relationship to Ance. Addie can predict what will happen to her corpse when she has passed, knowing that her beloved son Jewel will save her twice, once from the river and another time from the barn fire. Her connection to Jewel emphasizes her resentment of Ance and the Bundren family, as Jewel is the result of Addie's affair with Whitfield. Addie makes Ance promise to bury her in her hometown of Jefferson as a final act of revenge, as the painful and difficult journey will serve as her last act of spite against a family that she never wanted.
In the wake of Addie's death, Jewel is left feeling alone. He is trapped in a family he does not want to be a part of, nor does he feel he belongs, and he grows contemptuous of several members of the Bundren clan, especially Cash.
If it had just been me when Cash fell off that church, and if it had just been me when Pa laid sick with that load of wood fell on him, it would not be happening with every bastard in the country coming in to stare at her, because if there is a God, what is he for? It would just be me and her on a high hill, and me rolling the rocks down the hill at their faces, picking them up and throwing them down the hill faces, the teeth and all by God, until she was quiet and not that edge going on, one lick less, and we could be quiet.
Jewel faces an inner struggle throughout the course of the story. On one hand, he wants to abandon the family, and he craves freedom. On another, he fears that the family will not be able to succeed in filling Addie's final wish without Jewel's help.
Dewey Dell faces two troubles, one internal and one external. On the surface, she is gravely affected by her mother's inevitable death, and as such, the Bundrens, with the sole exception of Darrell, believe Addie's ailment is affecting her mood. Introspectively, Dewey Dell is well aware that she is pregnant with an unwanted child, an inconvenience which occupies her thoughts for a majority of the story. She keeps up appearances so that her problem is not brought to light, but uses their journey to town as a means to receive a hasty abortion, the burial of her mother taking a back seat to her growing list of duties and chores. Vardaman is the youngest member of the Bundrens, and his lack of life experience and inability to understand life and death causes him to be baffled and bewildered by his mother's death. Vardaman's understanding of mortality is vastly limited to events he has experienced, namely fishing down by the creek. As Vardaman notices that when fish become lifeless once they are out of water, he has this to say about Addie's death.
My mother's a fish.
The death of his mother emotionally affecting him, Vardaman has nobody to turn to discuss his feelings, ignored by most members of the family, and at one point, angrily confronted by Dewey Dell.
Vardaman. Vardaman!
Despite possessing a newfound understanding of mortality by the end of the novel, Vardaman is initially stupefied and saddened by Addie's demise, and as a result, is largely left to his own machinations. Darrell Bundren is the second-born son of the family, and despite his mental gifts, including an ability to see events even when he is not physically present, Darrell is the outcast of the family and the county. As Addie's death grows near, neither Jewel nor Darrell are present. Instead, sensing that Addie will die soon, Darrell heckles Jewel and taunts him with knowledge of his illegitimate birth.
Jewel. Addie Bundren's gonna die, Jewel. Addie Bundren is gonna die. God damn you.
Darrell badgers Jewel in such a way because he is jealous of his mother's favoritism of his younger brother. Darrell and Jewel are the two family members who care the most about Addie's death, as Dewey Dell does so for attention, Aunt simply wants a reason to get new teeth.
God's will be done. Now I can get them teeth.
Vardaman cannot come to terms with the concept of mortality. While Darrell appears unfeeling to Addie's death, he regrets her loss on the inside, and is the only family member who can foresee the calamities that will befall them on their journey to Jefferson.